Welcome everyone to VO Booth Besties Popcast. We're here to help working voice actors get your most important questions answered by industry pros who know. And if you haven't joined our amazing VO Booth Besties Facebook group, well, you should, because we're super duper fun. And seriously, such a great community and an opportunity. If you ever have questions, you want to share wins, it's a great place to get answers and celebrate. We also encourage you to visit our YouTube channel and your favorite podcast platform, where you can access more than 90 podcast episodes from demo producers to casting directors to agents to marketing professionals. Just there's so much information and it's all free. Now, without further ado, let's meet our guest. JT, are you with us?
I believe I am.
He's here.
Yay!
All right. Tell us about Lance.
Lance Kistler is the managing partner of KAMP Productions, a casting company dedicated to sourcing talent for clients across the globe. For over a decade, Lance has been a full-time casting director, focusing on commercials with a special interest in VO casting. Though movies, music videos, print, and on-camera shoots are all on his resume too. VO is where he likes to be. His only social media presence is on LinkedIn, so if you want to connect with him, that's the only place to do it. And it's where he spends his time promoting others, supporting their endeavors, and offering his perspective or assistance where it may be useful. You probably won't find him posting about the projects or clients he's working with, but you will certainly hear his directions and see his posts of encouragement to the community he owes so much to.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lance. I've been watching your LinkedIn posts for a while. I think we all have.
I'm sorry.
Love them. I think the first one that really stood out was your do's and don'ts post. And like what voice actors, like what you should and shouldn't do. And I can't remember specifically what the list was, but I was like, yes, like yes.
Don't suck.
No,
That's
exactly. Yeah. All right, that's it. The show is over. We've given the best advice. Just don't suck. And
please don't suck.
Yeah. So let's get out of the way up front at the top for your sake that you do not hold a roster of voice talent.
No.
You cast exclusively through agents. So talk to us about why.
Well, I would say 99%. Sometimes I do get things that are, for example, I did one that was a specific dialect of Chinese that I needed voice for, and then you do have to go to kind of like the public boards. You really don't have a choice. But for the general market, for things that are, let's call it more mainstream, then yeah, we go to agents. One of the big reasons is, first of all, I think that my clients, almost all my clients, pay through paymasters, right? So I need to know that you have an I-9 proper ID, that you're legal to work in the United States. I mean, this is just something that is not negotiable for the biggest of clients, right? Nike is not going to hire you if you can't prove who you are. And so with agents, they vet that out for me. I cannot risk, delivering a talent, and then after the session, like, oh, I can't satisfy this I-9, right? And that's one of the things. The other thing is that I don't want any chance that someone could say, Lance improperly sourced me. It's his sister, it's his friend, it's his whatever, right? Or they've coached with him and spent money, and that's why they got the job. Well, no. And that's just kept me out of that. And my clients are paying me to give them a service, and that service needs to be ironclad.
Yeah, and that's why you don't coach as well, right? Like you don't take money from talent.
No, in the state of New York, there are some interesting laws and rules. And one of the things when it comes to being a hiring manager, anyone who's in the hiring process, is that you're not supposed to take money from a potential candidate. It could be considered a bribe, right? Now, different states have different rules, but my company is based in New York. And I'll be honest, before I was even aware of that, I started coaching. Over a decade ago, I coached a couple of people, one in particular. And then that person came in for an audition. And I had this like really weird feeling, and this had nothing to do with knowing the rules. It was just like all these other people were there, and he's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "This isn't right," because now my proclivities, and let's say you do book it. Well, someone could say like, "Well, yeah, well, he's been coaching with them," right? And I said, "Nope." That was it. And I lose thousands of dollars a month. I mean, the number of people who reach out to me on LinkedIn, the number of people who offer for me to be a guest on their thing, and then, oh, if you want to help us do this thing, we'll pay you X amount, and then I can run a course. For the low price of only $10, I'll review your reads and everything. And I say, like, and this is just me, I don't speak for anybody else, but in the old days, you used to come to my booth and I would give you feedback for free on every read. It was this thing. It was called casting, and we did this, and we did it every day. And I apologize for any noise. I have a 70-pound puppy who is beside himself that his mom is on a business trip, and he is nosing his way under my desk. So I
Well,
apologize.
dogs are welcome. I've had children interrupt me during these kinds of recordings as well. So,
But so that's how that came to be. I mean, it just seems. And another statement I make, and some people kind of take offense to it, but I don't care, is that I'm paid. I'm paid from the minute the job starts. And the rest of you, the talent and the agents, are not paid unless you book. And so, I make a living from producers. There's like this whole subsection of people on this side of the equation who are handing me checks for the work that I do. And I feel like over here, I just don't need, give me another producer. Cool, I'll take their check, right? And I'll deliver them a job. But I say this all the time. Agents need to be meeting new talent. That's what I need them for. And coaches, good coaches, are making the talent better for me. There's just this gray area where I live that makes it difficult to cross lines.
yeah.
It's not because
So
I'm a saint. I love money, by the way.
who doesn't?
Right. So,
So walk us through. Let's just get a feel for how Lance works. Walk us
well,
through
I get up at
your
4.
workflow.
I go to the gym. No, my workflow.
So, like when you get a cat, like let's say somebody calls you, I want you to cast this. What do you do
Sure.
from there?
Well, obviously the first thing is get the specs, right? Get the specs, get the script. And then one of the things, it depends on who the client is and how many times I've worked with them. Are we really simpatico? When I read the copy that creative sent, do we already know we're on the same wavelength? Because a lot of times that's the case, right? We've been working together for years and they may not even have to say, or they just send like a rough cut and say, we need to fit this. And they let me go. Others, we pre-production meetings, talk about it, listen to the music they're going to have so that we can decide, are we going to go with deeper tones or higher tones or, this, and this. And then I sit down and I create a script. A lot of times the script is not the final script. It's something that I, adjusted, took out words that maybe we can't have to avoid NDA, or I pick key lines so that you guys, the talent, aren't reading free demos. I don't even give the creative the option. I just do it. I remove lines and then I deliver it. And it happens. They're like, "Well, they didn't read the whole thing." I'm like, "No, they didn't." Like, sorry, that's what demos are for. We can do one. Like,
Is that pretty
happy to do.
standard in the industry? I've never heard that before, and I love that.
No,
You're
no,
protecting us.
well, I mean, sometimes the script is, I mean, it's a 30-second script. I mean, you're going to read the whole damn thing. Oh, this is the way
Yeah.
it is. But, for some of these longer things, especially things that are industrial, and a lot of times the people who get my auditions, they might hear I record directions and I'll explain like, hey, we're reading the whole thing because there's 3 turns in this. I need you to be really personal here. And then there's a shift, maybe now you're in a doctor's office. Now you're talking to your friend. There's enough of a turn that I need those other lines to see if they can actually shift.
Hmm.
And then that's the case. But, I just try to think I know that we're going to play a casting take to multiple people before we decide to book somebody, and that's fine. But what I try to avoid is the potential that it could be just, used as a demo. Um, and I just do that because I know it could happen, and I don't want that to happen to people because again, I have to have a good working relationship with the talent and the agent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
speaking of agents, do you send every audition to every agent on your list every time? Do you pick and choose? How do you decide who you're going to send it to?
It's very unliked by the agents, but generally speaking, I pick a handful of agents and I rotate. So, depends on the type of job, if it's non-union, if it's union. Certain agents work on certain things. Certain agents have thresholds that they don't want to work below a certain dollar amount or whatever else. But what I try to do is rotate so that we're not just always given the same agent the same level of job. Just because you're ex agent doesn't mean you get every broadcast job. That's not how this is supposed to work. Plus, I'm not an idiot. And the talent are with 100 agents. I see some of your names, from 5 different agents at any given time. I mean, and some talent are bold enough to send their read in through multiple agents. I think the record is 3. One
That's a
job,
no-no,
same
right?
person, 3 agents. Well, it's a no-no because if you book it, who do I
Yeah.
call? Like, you expect me to go back and look at the timestamp and see who sent it to me first? Like, I'm like, no, be an adult.
Yeah.
Tell your other agents that you're working with somebody else. Like, don't put me in that position. That ain't
And
cool.
don't waste your time,
Yeah, I mean,
opening.
but most importantly, be an adult.
Be a grown up. I love it.
Sorry. Yes, we are all adults. Not to be rude, but I think they know it's unprofessional.
Yeah.
They know it.
So do you ask agents for a finite number of auditions, like you can only send me 10, or do you just have them send you whatever they think is right?
Whatever they think. I mean, they're professionals. I don't enjoy the fact that there's a gatekeepiness to this industry, and I feel like, I mean, obviously, as I'm sure you're all aware and you see regularly, and I apologize, I keep looking down. There's literally a giant head that keeps bumping into me down here. He's a sweetheart, but he's a moose. The I don't want to set all these rules. I don't want to tell you how to slate. I don't want to tell you how to label your file. And I understand that there's reasons and other people have proclivities about it. I just don't feel like that's the important part. If I'm listening, if you slate your name and I get to the part of your read and I'm going to submit you, I just delete your slate. I'm already in the audio file. I just delete it. Right? I could go through all the motions and say, say this, do that, label it this way and everything, and use it as a way to see if you can follow directions. But I don't care. If it's just seems like a lot, and I trust the agents to handle a lot of that because they have personal preferences. They want you to slate with their agency. Then do it. You work with them. You actually have a contract with those people, not me.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, do you? I care about the read.
I love that. So do you listen to the entire audition, especially if they have multiple takes?
No, not for the majority. I mean, so if you want the high level version, I'm a weirdo. I use a color coded system, and do I have one? I'm not looking to see. I also well. I'm trying to see if I have one of my notes, but I actually like clean up my desk every once in a while. But I actually
What's that like?
yeah, well, I use sticky notes because, that's what I need. And so what I'll do is like if we're doing like, let's say there's a mom, a daughter, and a doctor, I'll say like mom is purple, daughter is green, and doctor is gray, and I do these color systems. And then so as I'm going along, if I like somebody's read, I just really quick I pop a color on them, right? In FileMaker or on Finder on a Mac. I just pop a color on them. And so then I go back, I take all the grays, and then I go back and re-listen to all the grays. How many do I have? What do I like? And then I go into like the second read, for maybe further into the first read or into the second read, because if it also depends on my creative. Some creatives want me to deliver my top 5. Other creatives are like, we really don't know what we want. Give us a nice melting pot. So then I go through and decide who's my top, however many I'm going to deliver. And that changes. There's standards, right? Like half days of casting, full days of casting. But the reality is sometimes I'm just like, you know what? You told me you wanted a woman, 30s to 50s. Well, I can't give you 20 options to cover every tonality, different, textures and things like that. I'm going to
That makes
deliver what
sense.
I feel like, you know.
So I want to jump in now.
Oh.
So you start getting a Highlands. I go by NJ, but I'm a Gen 2. So you get your auditions from your agents and you're color coding them. But
Yeah.
as your process of color coding, this is kind of a big question, so I want you to answer it how you're comfortable. What either makes a submission stand out to you, either good or bad? I know subjectively you go, yeah, yeah, they were hitting the marks or the acting or their tone of voice, but I'm kind of thinking what immediately would make you go, ooh, I want to keep listening, or ooh, left, swipe, delete?
Well, one of the first things, if I'm being dead honest, is just audio quality.
Yep.
I mean, I've said this several times. Every audition now is basically a booth audition. It's a, a show of your vocal quality.
Yep.
And I understand, for those who are watching this, I understand that not everybody has a fully sound treated booth, that they have, maybe they have to make other alterations or other situations happen for their bookings. And I get that. The problem is that that's an explanation that I would have to give and I would have to know.
Yep.
And so when you're lining up, let's just say 20 really good reads. I mean, let's just say they were all equally awesome in their own ways.
Right.
And one of them sounds like, my headset in an open space with a 70-pound mutt wandering around, compared to Alicia's booth. It's going to be tough. And the second really, though, is just the presence in the spot. What is the juxtaposition of the person that's speaking? Are they talking about what's going on? Are they part of what's going on? Or are they referencing something that has already happened?
They're narrating what's going on. Yeah,
yeah.
POV. I like that.
And if we have the juxtaposition, if you can feel it in that opening line, and I know that lots of people that come, this has been, I'm going to ask, I'll cover it right now. People ask all the time about lead-ins. I know some casting directors say, I don't give a damn if it's what it took. Now, I could tell you that, if you use lead-ins to get in the pocket, you could just delete it. But at the same time, I don't take offense to it, because I might delete it. And I, to a certain degree, I find it kind of interesting how they got there. Like, just because I'm a casting director and I cast dozens, even hundreds of jobs a year, it doesn't mean that I'm not still learning even from the talent. Like, there are a couple of people in the past year that I've sent messages, and maybe they'll pop on LinkedIn or something and say it, that I was just like, yeah, you did a damn good job on that audition. I don't even know them.
Love that.
Right? I just say, you did a good job. They didn't book it. I just thought they did a great job.
Yep. That feedback is validation that many voice actors do not get. So
that's right.
Just knowing you're on the right track.
Yeah. I mean,
that's huge.
And sometimes it's just, like I said, I wouldn't want every audition to just be full of a whole bunch of walla, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's the read, because that would get a little, little taxing. But at the same time, it does show the craft of setting the stage, and I do find it a little interesting. Delete it if you like, right? But I know you're using it.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be.
Yeah.
Right. I think so.
So on that note, the audition is step one. And so you talked about lead-ins. We want to kind of give you some personality as well, and get, this is my one chance, my 30-second or 15-second opportunity to not only bring that script, to try to bring it to life. I know that's so cliche, and to impress you, but are you cool do I need to stay on spec? Do I give you something 180? Can I improv? Can I ad lib? Are you more of the mindset, the copywriter, this is the approved copy, this is it, and so you stick to that, and I gave you the specs, I spent time on it, please stick to that? Or is it more of a take two, go nuts? Or kind of what's your philosophy on that?
And I hate to say this because I'm a little all over the place. There's this voice in my head, we need to prove that we can hit the copy, and we can hit the copy in the right time, right? That does matter. But then there's that side of me that says, this is your business. This is you. And you're presenting yourself ultimately beyond my pasty white butt. You're making your impression upon these people who are making the ultimate decision too. And so if I come in and I'm the casting director and you're going to do it my way, well, then guess what? Maybe I'm hindering your ability to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I had teachers in high school who were hindering me from being awesome, and here I am. Awesome. And I do go back to my high school and remind them of that, by the way. So it's true. I do.
You
Like,
limited me.
yeah, well, I do. I mean, because they
Yeah.
did,
Well, in all
and
fairness, I have to say this because these two other women in here with me understand that we all have, ADHD, neurodivergent, just amazing kids. But public schools, man, I tell my son all the time, I'm like, while you're in school, they're going to keep you in a box. And I'm like,
yeah,
the
man.
minute you get out, all you're going to hear from your boss is think outside of the box. So I just tell him, I'm like, hang in there, man. It's
Yeah.
just a few more years. Just get.
I don't get into my personal life too much, but I can tell you this. I quit going to regular high school after freshman year because my
Did
father,
you?
who was my father was a brilliant man. He is still a brilliant man. And I had surgery and was out of school for a little bit. I had a tutor, right? And the tutor came
Mhm.
and I was getting straight A's. And my dad's like, he's like, wait, are you telling me that you're getting straight A's and your tutor's only coming to the house twice a week? Tuesdays and Thursdays, you do all of your classwork for the entire week? And
Yep.
I said, yeah. And he's like, well, what the hell are you going for? And I was like, yeah, I don't know, Dad, but I mean, I go and I do, whatever. And as soon as I'm healed up from the surgery, I'm going to go back. And he's like, do you want to? And I'm like, well, no. He goes, you want to get a full-time job? And I was like, wait, really? He's like, well, this doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
And both my sisters, fantastic. And my one sister is particularly brilliant. I hope she
Mhm.
watches this. She is truly one of the smartest people I know.
Yay,
And
sisters. Okay.
yeah, she's great. And but she was dual enrolled. She was in high school and dual enrolled in college at the same time. And my dad
Yeah.
had seen that and said, "Wait a minute, I got this kid that's like getting her bachelor's and in college at the
High
same time
school.
as going to high school." And that was it. And I went and worked a full-time job. And I worked at a golf course, and I still 3.8.
Love it.
Yeah, So yeah, and
And
it
think of
listen,
how much more you've learned actually being in a business space, actually having a job, having finance.
oh,
I
and
mean,
managing a schedule, you know
for
what I
sure.
mean? Like I had
For
to go
sure.
to work and get off in time and go do, whatever. But the point is, and it's not that I'm like oh, I want to be a nice guy to the talent and not make them do this and not make them do that. But the other side is that I've just never seen a huge benefit to just putting all these constraints on something that is a creative process. And then let's just be honest about it. The creatives, they don't know what the hell they want. They think they
I know.
do. And then, in the end, it's like, they said they wanted Morgan Freeman and they end up booking, like Gerard Butler. And I'm like, what? Okay, we made it.
Yep.
I guess
Yep.
we're here.
Yep.
So
I
so
love it.
that's why I kind of want I want the talent to know that it's not us versus them and no, it's like I'm really on your side of it. I'm tied to the process, and without the talent I don't have a product,
Yep. That's
right?
a that's a great perspective.
Well, it's
So
the only perspective.
Terry asked,
Who's Terry? Oh, Terry
he's
Briscoe.
Terry Briscoe. He's down in our comment section, and he said, "Lance, obviously following directions makes your job easier, but what else
Yeah,
can talent do to make life easier for casting directors? I mean, we talked about good sound.
good sound, really just giving it a good thought. I can tell the people that just jump in their booth and read their auditions all in one long slog. And you have to remember, sometimes I send out three jobs in a day or whatever, and I might get the same talent across different, and I can tell it was just boom, boom, boom. And and I understand that it is kind of a thankless thing, right? You're just, maybe that's the way it is. If I just take a handful of darts and huck them at the board, one of them's going to hit the bullseye,
Mhm.
right? But if I was giving the honest answer to that, Terry, it would be that I would want curated read. I'd want enough care put in there that I can present it as the read. Like here, put Terry on the spot. Listen to this, right?
Yeah.
And that does happen. I mean, I booked people, they're off their casting. I mean, literally, they didn't even do a session. They're just like their casting was perfect, you know, and or sometimes we just have to do it to get a higher audio file.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, they sent an MP3, or now we need a lossless file. So let's do that.
Okay. No,
I mean,
that's
so that really, to me, I mean, other than that, it's, do it on time, try to
mhm.
hit it. I mean, do it. This is an annoyance. I'm going to say this. There is a weird thing that happens with agents, right? Where there's like a race. I send out a breakdown. The agents are like, "Look at it first," because their talent are with every agent under the sun. And what I've been finding, unfortunately, is that I'm busy. I'm blessed to be busy. If my deadline is say Thursday at noon, and tomorrow, which is Wednesday, in case this is watched later, if I get a bunch of people submitted to me by 2 o'clock tomorrow, if I have the time to start that job, I'm going to start
Mm-hmm.
because I could have more jobs coming in at any given moment. So I start. Well, that means that those first couple people are already up in here. They're in my brain, right? And as I start, as I said, color coding, what if I get really good options? And if I only needed, if I've got 10 solid women in their 40s for that spot, now as the other people are coming in, they literally have to bump those other ones. And they
Right.
do. And I have a proclivity that if you send me an audition, I have to listen.
Okay.
It's like I mean I'm being honest. It's like one of my like neuroses where like I get it and I know somebody took the time. So then I'm like, son of a bitch.
And you don't want to miss the voice. I mean, just like you
It's
said,
happened. I've had people who are like, this person was on a flight and they really, I think they're perfect for it, and they book it,
Yeah.
right? And that's, but it really, again, not a saint, but it's because I know someone took the time to do it, and I'm like, okay, the very least I can do is click play. I mean, that
And
does
that's
seem a
very
little
thoughtful.
rude to
We
do any
appreciate you
less.
for that. So here's a kind of a big question because,
Ooh.
you have a presence on LinkedIn, but not necessarily anywhere else. How important is it for you, in your experience, that talent have a social media presence, that they be on LinkedIn, that they even have a
Hmm.
website? You're booking through agents, but is there ever a time where you're, I let even just LinkedIn, scrolling LinkedIn, and you're like, oh, this looks, oh, I like her voice. Or if you happen upon a video or something,
Not
is that presence important to you?
for me, not much.
Okay.
It's not that often. Again, because I go through agents and
Yeah.
I don't cast off of demos very infrequently. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just very rare that I need a demo.
Yeah.
Um, there is it's very rare for me where they'll say like, okay, great, they did that, but do you have anything where we can see like because the creative could change, we see their range.
For sure.
And then I might go to your website and say like, oh yeah, well here's their website. Here's some of their stuff they've done.
Mm-hmm.
you know, Instead of bothering the agent to collect your demo. I mean, it's probably already there. Um, so that does happen. And that I think is one of the biggest dichotomies that I see in the industry is that, I, I guess as a buyer, that's what they refer to me at an agency, but as I don't know, I consider myself a mid-level buyer. Um, I I don't need any of that stuff. But I know that there is like a whole subculture of getting your own clients, right? Of having your own direct clients. And that's a separate thing.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different world than where I live. And I feel bad sometimes because people are like, "Oh, go check out my site." And I do, and I'll go and I'll listen and I'll say, "Hey, I listened to your stuff and I really like this spot. That was my favorite one."
Mm-hmm.
And then well, if you want to add me to your roster, I'm like, why the hell would I have a roster? I'm not a talent
Yeah.
agent.
Yeah.
I can't represent you. I can't
Yep.
make any money off of you. I can't take a percentage. And why would I email a bunch of people from my roster when I can email an agent who has all those people?
Right. And does the work for
That's
you.
yeah, I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, now
Yeah.
they're just sending it off and collecting the reads and then sending them back.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I'll be very honest with you.
oh, I like
You
that.
are so on point with the subculture about a lot of different things, about this like amassing demos and getting in front of casting direct, trying to get on rosters or try. But I also think some people confuse, which you mentioned, a casting director and a talent agent, certainly in the voiceover world, and a manager. So there's like these kind of terms that are thrown, and I honestly think sometimes people just literally do not understand
Well, I think
the
that's
difference.
I think that's where the money comes in. If people are confused, then you can, so you put something out there and you say, hey, you can make all this money and, blah, blah, blah. And then you say, but it's really, really confusing. You say, well, not if you come to me.
Yeah.
Well, shit, yeah. I mean, like I'm a good mechanic. I work on my own cars. I could save you money to show you how to change your own oil. Come on by for the low. I don't know. There's a lot of things in it that are really kind of wonky to me. And
Yeah.
what I say, this is what I say is that there are people out there whose job it is to present talent. Those people should be out there meeting talent, right? And then I go to them and because I had this happen to me when I was leaving New York City. Okay, there's I don't get into personal stuff too much, but we had a reason, and I was leaving New York City, and I literally said, "This is happening in my life, and I'm leaving tomorrow."
Okay.
And I had one jackass producer who was like, "Well, how are you going to find new talent if you're not in New York City?" I said, "That's not my job. That's what agents are for."
Oh, yeah.
I said, I
Yeah.
said, what the hell are you thinking? Like, you think that every night I'm going out to all these showcases and I'm going to find the next voice and then I'm going to like, go and watch them one time is the thing? No, that's what agents are for. That's what they do. I'm like, you need to, and because I'm not a shy person. Like, if you want to step toes, we'll talk. And I'm like, and I literally, I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm leaving. If you don't want to work with me, don't. Like,
Yeah.
see, it doesn't make any difference to me. And and I took a little offense to it because I was like, this was an executive producer. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
you just don't even understand how the process is done.
No, no.
Like in the old days, if I met a new voice talent, I could get him an agent.
Hmm.
I call up agents that I work with and be like, hey, I met this person. But now with what's going on and the number of people who've got into VO and all this stuff, I mean, it's like I don't even bother anymore.
Yeah.
Because they get inundated. I had an agent the other day told me they had 500 people in a email folder who had submitted to them recently.
Yeah. I'm
I'm
not
like, well,
surprised at all. I'm
Yeah.
not.
and yeah, but they will call me. Agents will call me and say, "Hey, have you ever recorded this person?" They're asking to join or what do you think about this person? And I love that because that's me working with my
Right.
partners at the agency,
Right.
and that is honestly, again, it's an honor. It's an honor that they would reach out and ask my opinion.
That's
So
great.
that leads me to a question that some people have asked us. Should talent be trying to curate a relationship with a casting director?
I mean, I don't know why you would. I think that, you know, relationships should be organic. If you're meeting people, I meet people on LinkedIn. I met Alicia. I didn't know her. She asked me if I'd come do this. I was like, hell yeah, do it. As long as it's for free and it helps the community and no one's getting pimped out of something, then sure, yeah, I'll come do it. Like that's the way life works. Just like the people at my gym that I'm a big gym rat. So, like and we're just friends. Like I don't even know their names. Like everyone's just friendly, blonde girl number two is always on this machine, and I ask her very politely if she's done. Right? So, it's like you can just be friends. I don't need, and what are you going to do? You're not going to suddenly become right for that role because we work together. It doesn't change anything.
It's not having an agenda.
Yeah,
Right.
and the ultimate thing is that you still have to be the right voice. You really do. And I would rather everything that I do be because we're all on the same wavelength than there's a possibility that it will further anyone's career, you know.
And you
But
mentioned sometimes talent will come to you and ask you to listen to an audition or go to their website.
mhm,
I
yeah,
think that if someone is asking you those questions, they clearly are trying to gauge whether they're ready to approach another agent or seek representation of some sort.
I think the majority of them are. Oh,
Forward, honest. If someone isn't ready, are you going to send them not necessarily to a specific coach, but are you going to suggest they do some work before they go there?
no,
No.
no. I mean, first of all, I don't have any coaches that I would recommend
Mhm.
because I don't coach, or because I don't take their services,
Right.
right? So I couldn't tell you if they were great. I mean, I know several coaches that I personally think are nice people, but since I'm not a talent and I've never been coached by them, I really can't say like you should go coach with this person. I hear that they cash your checks. That's all I would know of them, and it's not to be rude to them. It's that I just wouldn't have the purview. It's like when people ask me who's a great agent, all agents are great to me. I'm a buyer.
Right.
I mean, that's just the answer, and I think that it's just really important. Um, I think what happens when people send me that is they just want their name to be top of mind. They want me to be thinking about them and maybe see something in there that one day I will call them. But I always say the same thing. Who's your agent? Who can I reach out to if I would like to meet you? And I don't keep anyone on my roster. I bet you there's probably 100 people in the last 6 months who have gotten that exact response from me. Who's your agent? And that carries me to something interesting, which is I've been saying to people, and two agents have done it this week. I've said, it's funny to me that so many talent reach out to me, but so few agents. Like I have national network, major projects running on television, they're on all day, not to mention all the little stuff, right? But again, last year, I think it was like 218. I'd have to look. Like I think it was 218 individual castings that I did. And I think, so again, I consider it as an individual person, I would say that makes me probably a mid-level buyer, right? Because they're not all huge campaigns, admittedly. A lot of them are non-union stuff. A lot of them are industrials and stuff. But it gets the campaigns. But last year, I think there was probably only one or two agents who reached out and said, "Hey, I'd really like to work with you." And again, what's that?
That's astounding.
Oh, it's utterly ridiculous. It should be punishable by law. I mean, like this is the stuff that kills me because I watch all these talent like working their fingers to the bone. They're out there, they're networking, they're taking the classes on networking. They're going to build a website, they're going to create a demo, and then I'm like, huh, who's your agent? Never heard of them, right? And I'm not saying that they should come begging at my door, but at the same time, I'm thinking like, I mean, you could have found me. I'm on a professional site. I mean, like that's your job, in my opinion. And some agent's going to watch us and get upset and whatever else, and that's okay. But to me, if I was a talent, that's what. And now that being said, a lot of your agents I'm already working with, so no offense to them. They could be doing that all day long. That's probably how they got to me.
Right.
But and I'm not asking talent to go out there and knock on their agent's door and get because they're going to get really mad at me if you do that and say, "Are you calling?" Well, they're busy too. But I think that talent it would behoove them to reach out to buyers and say, "Hey, I may not be the only voice you need, so I really like this agent. So if you would be interested in me and anyone else, please reach out to my agent." Now, I know that's going to be antithetical to what a lot of people are telling you that you want this direct client, but you're not going to be the voice for everything,
Well, sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I think what we would see by doing that would also help the the economy of scale. We're seeing rates going lower and lower and lower. Well, part of the reason is because people are more desperate and there's less gatekeepers involved. You know, when
Yeah.
when casting used to cost a few $1,000s and now you can just post it on some pay to play and 1,000 people will read it for pennies, why would I pay you anymore? I mean, it's just, I own a business and run a household and everything else. And, when Grubhub offered me free delivery because of my Amazon Prime membership, I quit using Seamless and started using Grubhub because I'm not dumb, right? Like, so
Are you feeling the industry's hitting a point of devaluation?
well, I think so. I mean, everything that I see, and I say this to people all the time. Um, Someone will ask me a question about like a rate, and I'll say, they might say like, how much do you think this should be? And I'll give them a rough idea, and they'll say, "No, we'll just put it on voices.com." Legitimate. I'm not bashing at voices.com. I don't know those people. Don't care. Um, I don't use it, but that's what the producers tell me.
Wow.
They're like, "Oh, we'll just put it on voices.com. We'll have 1,000 people read it in a day." You know, I mean, it's legitimate, and I've said this in other forums. I mean, like I've had agent like this is true. This happened not that long ago for a major, astonishingly large client. I get a script, didn't know that it had already been worked on, send it out to a couple of agents. Last minute, of course, right? It's like we got to record tomorrow, national network for this major, you know. I wish I could say it, but I can't. But it would make your head pop, right? I'm like, okay, you need this tomorrow. You need me to get your voices today for tomorrow, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I send the script out to a couple of really banging agents. I mean, people who can really just get it done, got great rosters. One of them calls my phone, like phone. I'm like, what I do wrong? What's wrong? Already worked on this last week. Same script, same spec. Really? Yeah, but they wanted it at a different rate and blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh, That's interesting. So, it's the same thing I say about when you're asking, when a producer can call your agent, whoever your agent may be, and say, hey, how much would you quote this for? And they say 5 grand. Okay, great. And let's do it. 5 minutes later, they can call another agent in another market. They call Boise and they're just like, hey, Boise, how much for this? Oh, 4 grand. Okay, great. Let's do it. And then they say, well, I'll call this one other and I'll post it on Voices for 500. I mean, like, who knows? You could do it for whatever the hell you want. It doesn't matter, right? Well, now what happens? You have pools of people at different rates. And I have agents sometimes on non-union, of course, because union is generally speaking scale. And you could argue, I mean, even if it's double scale, like, well, I got some talent who are double scale. Can I send them? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. But they're going to get $2 put next to their name because I can't spike the thing and just hit them at the end. And guess what? They would have to be so damn good that someone's like, I'm willing to pay double. Like, we need to be as honest as possible if we're going to do these conversations, right? So, I mean, that's the stuff that is really driving the prices down. Is that and I look at it differently. Fair hiring practice as a business owner, right? I can't just be like, so you've got, black hair and you've got blonde hair, and I've decided that for these people we're paying $5,000. For these people we're paying for. No, it's supposed to be one job, one price. Everyone auditions fairly and equitably, and whoever the best person is. But because we allow it to go this way, and because there's no guardrails, the job doesn't exist. It's just some ethereal script that gets sent out. Then it gets bastardized, and we have people pricing themselves lower, right? And let's be honest, actors don't make a lot of money. I'm very well aware. And so eventually someone will be like, I'll do it. And I think I think what I'm saying resonates with all of you.
100%.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really follow a lot of stuff. Like I've never watched your podcast. That's what I said. I didn't need pre-questions. I just show up. I just say what I want to say. And it's not, no offense. I didn't mean anything by it, but
No.
I don't know what other people are saying. So I just say what I see and how I feel.
Well, we get a little frustrated
Get done, baby.
with the money making machine of the industry, the online voiceover industry. That it's like I see commercials every single day for you can make money in your PJs
Sorry.
doing voice acting, and these people are bringing more and more people into the industry who are just happy to make $25. You know, they're like, I made money with a microphone. Like, I'm so excited, and there's nothing wrong with them being excited, but they have absolutely no idea how they're destabilizing or devaluing the industry. And the more that they pull in with this money making machine of, I'm not making as much money doing voiceover anymore, I should probably start coaching. And so they start coaching and they bring in more people, and it's like we just keep creating this frustrating cycle.
One of the things that I see, and it's kind of crazy, is I'm on LinkedIn, and I try to spend a little bit of time on there because I do like to interact with people. I just like it to be in a more professional setting. There's a lot of things in life that I just try to stay away from, and so LinkedIn works for me. And it's blown me away because I've seen people who really specialize in certain aspects of the VO industry, and then, like, they make a lot of bold statements, and then I see them auditioning for a job like, for example, in perpetuity. It's a huge conversation, and I say, you never do anything in perpetuity, and pump their fist, and then I'm like, you son of a bitch, you auditioned for it. Of course you did, because you're not dumb, and you realize what in perpetuity really means. Like we need to have like a full page, like an all day presser. Give me a box, I'll stand on it. Yeah, I don't care if it's raining. I'll go out there and I'll be like, let's talk about in perpetuity. Like, can we really talk about? Let me tell
Talk
you.
about
And I
it
know
right
I'm
here.
gonna
We're
I'm
right
gonna
here.
talk about it. You can't stop me. Here's what happens, people. 90% of the time, most of the crap that's produced in this country from producers, media companies, whatever, they don't have an effective way to put it somewhere. That requires a media buyer. Big agencies are a different story. They have a plan. They know exactly how much they're going to spend. Verizon knows what they're doing, and they know how to do it. They've been doing it a long time, right? You got to remember, it costs $40,000 to run a Verizon spot once in prime time during Wheel of Fortune, right? That's what it costs. When people are buying voices in perpetuity, first of all, the production company has no interest in them never making another spot. That would be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Let me make you this pen once, and it's never going to make, literally made to fail, right? There's this much ink in this pen. We all know this. It's the same with production. The reason they buy in perpetuity is because nobody is going to pull it down. It was posted, and I'm talking about, let's say, your local places, right? Mom and pop, heating and cooling company, right? Around here, that's a big thing. It's Michigan. It's cold. I always see these heating and cooling companies. Well, guess what? They're probably buying those voices in perpetuity because they're going to run it when they have the money to run it. And they don't have this endless bucket of media. I'm not going to lie to you. They might come back next year and go, hey, let's try this again if they saw a return. But they don't know if they're going to see a return. Now, I'm not saying in perpetuity is good. But the reality of it is that if they place it somewhere, they don't have a team of people. The people who actually contracted you, that producer doesn't have the keys to the castle. They're not going to be like, could you tell me your password for your YouTube account so I can go in and pull down that spot from 3 years ago because it's up?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. And so they buy this crap because they're like, we got to run it. We got to see if we get a return on investment. We got to see what's going on. I'm not saying people should do it. I'm just saying this is why SAG, and I'm not pro SAG, but the one beauty of SAG is 13 weeks, everybody. Every 13 weeks, somebody has to make an action. They have to say, are we going to pay holding fees again? Are we going to buy media? And if we do buy media, we're going to send a check to the talent. That non-union is the Wild Wild West, and there's a reason that people are buying this. And all these crazy rate guides and all this crap, they're confusing. I've looked. I do this every day. They're confusing. Not saying they're bad. But your average producer, and let's also be honest, a lot of these companies are leaving the big agencies because they don't want to pay what it costs. I mean, I recently did a commercial. The budget to shoot the commercial, one commercial, was $1 million to shoot a commercial. That was the budget to shoot it. That doesn't buy any media. So now what you have is a file. I thought I had here. I do. Look at me. This is a thumb drive. You have a file sitting on this, $1 million. What do you do with it? Nothing. I don't have any budget to buy media. It might as well just sit over here on my desk because now you need another, 10,000, million, just to do something with it. And I'm not trying to devalue the talent. I'm not saying that you're not worth every cent, but I hear it all the time. Oh, you're working for that big pharmaceutical company. They got oodles of money. They got this. You think that they just opened their wallet and said, make us a spot and then spend as much as you want to market it. And then, if it doesn't work, we don't care.
Right.
Return on investment is everything.
Yeah, I think that when we get back to that in perpetuity conversation, one thing that we really advocate for is if you're going to do something in perpetuity, fine. If it's corporate, if it's an explainer video, if it's just going to live on someone's website, you don't need to have a heart attack about it. Where you really want to pay attention is when it's for broadcast. And what you're saying is know what their media buy is, know what they're planning to do with it. We don't know this stuff. We can't.
And know your customer.
But we have to know exactly. I had a job for the Good Feet store a few years ago, which is not a small company, and they ran it for the time agreed upon, for the amount agreed upon, and then they came back to me and they're like, "We want that in perpetuity," and I said, "No." Right. And they were like, "Well, why not?" And I'm like, "Because you're a footwear store. I can't do that, And they were like, "Well, fine." And they just went and found somebody on voices.com who was willing to do it, and just copied my read exactly.
100%.
And she was willing to do it.
Sounded like you.
It did. She just literally mimicked my read.
Oh yeah, I get stuff all the time. Can we find somebody to replace? Especially when we take a client from another. If a producer that I'm working with is like, hey, we took this client, we need to redo the video because we need to relicense everybody. Can we replace them? I'm like, what do you want? That.
Yep.
Okay. You know, I mean, listen, it is wild, and I know I get very passionate about it, but the reality is, I mean, this is what has happened, and when I say this is, and other people will disagree, I mean, that's totally fine. But the first thing that I do when anyone asks me for like a rough estimate on pricing, first thing I say is, I don't want to do that. Like tell me what you want to pay and I'll put it out because
Yeah.
I don't really want a part of your game. Like that's really not what I do. I will do it, I will help, but you're probably not going to like my answer because but what I do, and hey, it's possible that my producers are going to be watching this, but I'm honest with my producers. First thing that I do is I look at the SAG rates. All these other rate cards, I look at the SAG rates because I ask myself this. If I called up Agent X at huge agency Y and I said, hey, I'm working on a industrial video, category one, right? That's in perpetuity, first of all.
Mhm.
And what does it pay? $692, if I remember off the top of my head, right? I know what it costs, and I arguably can get the best talent, or at least really good talent at scale. Same with made for digital or any of this other. I mean, one of them is, I don't have it in front of me, the new media contract, it's like $2,500 for 1 year,
Mhm.
right? One whole year, $2,500. And so then I just balance that and say, okay, so if we were buying this and we were going union, I could do it for 2,500. Well, you bet your sweet bippy that, non-union needs to fall below that because they could just go SAG.
Yeah.
And not argue with you, not negotiate, not have some agent come back and go, well, can we get a plus whatever on this? What about well, it's all right here, just one boop, right? And I,
Well, on that
it's
note, are you open to, or I don't know, AB, maybe you can help me phrase this, just open to Taft-Hartling? Does that even
of
go
course.
through you? How does that work?
Oh, of course it goes through me. It's actually
Yeah.
one of the big complaints that I have is that people who do casting maybe don't even have access to this. They're not registered with SAG to do Station 12s. And I posted about this the other day. I'm like, it pisses me off because like I carry all this insurance and I can prove my ownership of the company and all this stuff. And I have workman's comp insurance and liability and errors and omissions and all this stuff, which is, by the way, what it takes to be an actual vendor with the largest agencies. Like these big agencies, when I sign up with them to cast a job, they're like, hey, could you just like slide over proof of $3 million worth of liability insurance for me? And I'm like, it's really funny because I see this jackwagon on LinkedIn. It's like, I'm a casting director. And I'm like, you carrying 3 million? Could you slide in my spot here? I don't know. Maybe you could. Some of them can clearly, and some of them I know do, right? But then on the other side, it's like, I I had to go through this incredible process for this last agency. And one, I was doing this one, I had to co-insure the client. I had to prove that I added them to my policy to co-insure them. Because if I make a mistake in that breakdown, I add a zero or I do something else, they don't want to suddenly pay you double scale. They don't want to suddenly pay, they're going to come back on me for that, right? So again, there's a whole lot of smoke and mirrors. I'm not saying people aren't doing it, but I mean, I just have to be honest. As a full-time, this is what I do person, I'm paying a couple $100 a month just to have the privilege of owning a corporation, you know? And I pay myself on a damn payroll. Like, what's really funny, you guys will laugh about this, and I say, I probably shouldn't. My wife's probably gonna watch this and be like, why do you tell everybody everything in the world? Um, I live in Michigan. I own a company in New York. I have to pay myself through a paymaster as an employer of record because I'm not licensed to do business in the state of Michigan. So guess what? I pay. So like Extreme Reach, when you guys get paid and everything, but everybody complains about the taxes being, that's me every check because my company's in New York. And then I get all these people like, oh no, you're a contractor. The hell you are. If you were directed, if you were directed in that session, you should open up the IRS ABC rules and read what it says. Extreme Reach teams, Highland, talent partners, you name it, exist for a reason. It's
So,
not because we love cutting checks to them.
right. So Lance, I want to go back to, so we had a question in the comments about casting directors, coaching. I'm going to make sure we get the right question. Um, Earlier statements about casting directors teaching and coaching in New York.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain which comment, but I think it's, are you referring to people, who basically call themselves casting directors because they've cast a couple of things, or they've had a client reach out to them and say, hey, like I tried to be casting a little. I had a couple of clients in other countries saying, can you find me a male voice? Can you find me a female voice like this? And so I had a little bit of like a roster I put together, and then I realized I don't want to do this. And so I just said, never mind, this is not working for me. Is it people like that, or are you aware of specific casting directors in New York who are
No,
coaching?
no, it's not. It's not that any like. So it's if you're a person that is party to a hiring process, right? So if you were to say you and I coached, right? Now you've exchanged money with me. If you come in for an open and fair audition and you've exchanged money with me, there could be the argument that you've increased your odds, right? Now, is that true? Not necessarily. But I don't want that. Now the agent's rule, and I could pull it up here. I have it in my there is a law in New York, um, agents. I just sent it yesterday to an agent. Um,
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll state I think there there are casting directors who do like workshops and they're teaching, like Frank Verderosa, he teaches how to use Pro Tools, how to teach, that's
yeah,
different than saying like, here's how you should be doing your auditions in tonality, in pacing, in performative. That's what I'm looking for. It's like performative coaching. Um, but
yeah.
some
Like I
of
said,
them are pretty good. Like I've coached with Tina Marasco, and
oh,
we love her. She's fantastic.
I think there's probably. I mean, listen, no, I would never make a statement that they're not great at what they do,
Hmm.
right? The problem that I have is that I can't have even the image of impropriety.
Yeah.
If they don't have an issue with it, I have no problem with it. But for me, if anyone were to ever say, if anyone went to SAG, right, and said, well, he hired this person and they've been coaching with him, it wasn't fair and equitable, they would have a valid complaint. I don't care. Any of these people can call me and explain why I'm wrong, and I'll tell them, okay, but what if I'm right? It's the position that I've taken.
Yeah.
And if they want to do it, I don't give a shit. They can do what they want. But for me, in the agent's world, in being an agent, for example, agents are technically not even supposed to be part of the casting process. They're supposed to offer options. They're not actually supposed to massage anything, right? It's supposed to be fair and equitable. And that has changed. There's a lot of, well, some agencies have casting departments now, right? But they're not based in New York because you got to remember different states, and I have it here, the American Talent Agency, or what is this website? ATA, it's Board of for Talent Agents. And there's a bunch of laws for talent agents, and one of them is that they can't accept money
Hmm.
for consideration. And so when I was trained, and again, I apologize for the noise. My puppy is chasing the cat. Um, the I was taught you can't have it. You just cannot have this option. And that's the hill I decided to die on, to my own detriment. Again, losing thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars over the years. And I just, I'm going to stand by it.
Yeah. Well, I know like we've heard of an agency where they offer all sorts of classes and coaching on the side, and it gives the person this feeling like, well, if I do all the classes and coaching, I'll get signed with the agency, and then maybe I'll only be sent for work if I pay for the coaching, and it kind of creates this feeling and conflict of interest. I think that's really what we're getting at.
Yeah,
So
so I just
we're
want to read this. I just want to real
perfect.
quick. It says, for Class C employment, such receipt shall state a theatrical employment agency may not charge you, the artist, a fee before referring you to a job. If you pay a fee or that otherwise violates the law, you may demand a refund and shall be repaid within 7 days. And I mean, this is like in the New York State law. And again, I know some people are going to get mad. I'm used to it. I don't care. And you know, I don't. I just think that and I think that every talent out there would say, you know what? There's just a lot of people with their hand out. And some people are great. And I'm glad that there's awesome coaches, right? Really, truly am,
Yeah,
because I get great talent out of it. But what I don't like, what makes me a little upset is come and meet this person and they'll put you on their roster. They shouldn't. Why do they need a roster? I don't think you can even have a roster as a casting director. You're not an agent unless you also are an agent, right? But that's a
right.
different story. And then, meeting me shouldn't make any difference in my evaluation of your read. It just shouldn't, because if that's the case, then why the hell would everybody audition? Like, it's bonk town. And I wish that we could just get away from it. But then guess what? A lot of people would lose their income.
Yeah,
They make more money doing classes than they probably do casting. Whereas I'm on the other side of that. I make all of my money casting.
right.
Right? And none of my money from the other stuff. And I mean, I literally yesterday had a conversation with a very prominent agent who I sent this article to because she read one of my posts and she agrees with me wholeheartedly. She says, "But Lance, those other people are making that money, and why don't you could do it too? Like, why should you let other?" And I said, "That's a dumb way to act in life. Just because someone kicked in the door doesn't mean I should go loot it. Like, yeah, I can get more out of you. I can also just take your money. Like, this
So
is the thing. I was taught this as a child. I'm a relatively large man, right? My dad's a relatively small man. And he said to me once, looking up at me like this, he says, just because you're big doesn't mean you should push people around. And he was 100% correct. And just
I
because
love
I'm
it.
in a position of power doesn't mean that I should exact it upon everybody.
Well,
Rather
so
be nice.
let's use your position of power to gain some knowledge. If you
Oh,
can tell us, like, what are some of the transitions and changes other than financial and like the devaluation of rates? Like, what are some of the changes you've seen in the industry, like, like maybe diversity or more women being cast, persons of color? Like, are you seeing more jobs for accents, things like that? Like, what are some of the changes and shifts
yeah.
you've seen?
I mean, I obviously there was a very large shift to, person of color, black, I don't, I think we got into this thing where we were trying to be like uber PC, and then everyone realized that, some people black, like we don't have to be like we're all friends here. Like what are we doing? And then, like, yeah, there has been a push maybe to say like this is an automotive spot, so we'll cast it as a female to be, I don't know, contrarian, or to say like, we're going to do something different. But what I always said, I've said this from the very beginning, is who's the best damn read? Who's the best read? Who nails the copy? What bothers me more than anything is when someone labels it before we ever hear what anyone can do. We've just decided that this is going to be this. And I'm like, well, but we haven't heard how everybody reads. So I'm going to be honest with everybody. I make a lot more money doing on-camera casting. The reason I don't do very much on-camera casting is because I didn't like having to tear people apart. She's too fat. He's too skinny. His hair's too thin. Her eyes are crooked. Her tan is uneven. I mean, this is like legit. Like, if you want to just be honest about how a casting goes, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, we need someone who's fat enough to look like they have diabetes. I mean, are we literally, this is the conversations that are being had if we're going to be on this and be honest with everybody. And you have to understand that, I came from a personal training background where people's bodies and figure and everything. I mean, I trained, you know, uh, champion bodybuilders and figure competitors and things like this. And I'm like, having spent all that time working with people in that space, I was like, this makes me really uncomfortable. talking about people like this. And it's not because I'm like the nice guy who wouldn't say that stuff ever. I mean, come on, let's
Right.
just, again, we're all adults. It's just that it didn't feel good. And so with voiceover, the part that I liked was I didn't know who was on the other side of the booth. I don't know what's going on. And I'm not for or against either side. I just really care more about the read, the connection. And the American public don't necessarily even know. They don't know the person who's reading that. There are plenty of people who you can't place their voice. You don't know what skin tone, and that's perfectly fine with me. And I know that, I mean, the thing that I guess everybody would want me to say is, oh, I think it's great that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. But what I really care about is that the people who want to audition are being able to audition, and the people who are doing a great job are getting paid. And
Yeah.
it's not a cop out. It's legitimately the answer to great media. I said this at the very beginning. I had a celebrity on a campaign, like a big, big celebrity. And he was shooting a film. It was really difficult to get him on for re-records and stuff, right? And so we were in this meeting, and I just sitting there listening to this absolute garbage, paying this person millions of dollars. And I just said, why don't we replace him? Well, we have this contract. And I go, so hire a scale actor. No one cares. No one cares that, so and so is the voice of Orange Juice. Like, yeah, it's neat if you know them and you recognize them. That's cool. But we're paying $3 million for someone who isn't even available. So I booked another guy. I won't say the campaign. He ended up being the voice of the entire brand for years, made over $1 million.
Wow.
Literally changed his life as a working actor. That celebrity didn't make a difference to them.
Right.
Didn't even make a difference. Right.
Yep.
Like,
And this, and this opened the door for someone else, like you said,
right.
having the opportunity. I think
Right.
that's huge.
And I think what I said was, hey, why don't we put, and I mean, if this guy's going to end up listening to this, he's going to be like, you suck. But I was like, why don't we just put him on this spot? And then, like, a couple weeks after that runs for, we'll put someone else on there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the beauty of, like, especially with SAG talent, because you're at scale and you're 13-week increments. We can literally just be like, hey, we were paying $3 million for this person. Why don't we just, I don't know, book them all? Just
Right.
right. Like you want a black woman this week yeah, I don't know. What does a
We got
white
the
man
budget
sound
for
like?
that.
Like,
We
yeah,
got
like
the
we
budget
could
for
like
that.
just let me know. We could do it. Like, I feel like we end up in conversations that are so antithetical to how we really want to live our lives,
Yeah.
and then we glom onto one standard and be like, well, this is an unfair practice, and this. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's just full of unfair practices.
Yeah.
And we're willing to say, like, okay, we don't have enough women in these types of spots. We don't have this, but we're not willing to say that there are literally people out there who aren't actually talent agents who are operating as talent agents. But we're willing to point the finger at whoever the biggest dollar amount is.
Mhm.
Those people with that big wallet are treating people poorly. Like, it's the easiest mark.
Yep.
I go into meetings all the time, and like, oh, we're thinking about doing this, and I'm like, when really? I mean, if you want to do it, I'll do it. If you really want a celeb, then we'll do it. But I mean, like, is it going to, what's your ROI going to be?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
That's a lot of money. So Lance, I mean, holy cow, this has just been incredible. We have surpassed an hour, and I am
Oh,
like
I don't care.
over what, yeah, well, we're good too.
Yeah.
But I would like to kind of ask, and we don't want to, take up
No,
too much
ask whatever you
time,
want.
everybody
Okay.
else. Do you have any final thoughts for our voice actors listening, and watching as well? Just kind of, I don't know, what they can do going forward, maybe just, I don't know, kind of a little uplifting, inspirational.
Well, it's a little difficult because a lot of talent ask me, how they can get in front of me, and of course, the sad answer is that I go through agents, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. They feel like that is the ultimate disequity or inequity, right? And I'm like, and I understand why they feel that way. I do. And what I would say is, don't debase yourselves. You need to practice. I know you need to book the smaller stuff. I get that. I understand that 100%. But what's happened is that because so many people are very talented and just starting out, right? I mean, like, people have won the Oscar in their first film. It's happened. There's no question about this. But the processes that were there, and the layers that were there did kind of protect people. And what I want to see people do, I don't have a problem. People should be coaching. They should be listening to other people who are doing it. But what they shouldn't be doing is thinking that spending more money with particular people and that is not honing their craft is the answer. It's not. People like me can speak for free, right? Because I'm talking about my day to day. Literally talking to a couple people who work contemporary. We work together, right? I mean, you guys audition for me. It's like this is the way it should be. If you're hiring someone to help you hone your craft, to help you craft a perfect demo, then that could be worth it. But also listen to these types of things to make sure that that demo is going to be how to use it properly, where it's going to be useful. And you know, you got to really love it. It is a hard industry. You can't just, it's not a get rich quick. It really isn't. Um, and I know, I think Alicia, I think you pointed out this happened in my local community. There was, I live in a small town, lovely town. I'm also the president of my homeowners association, and our local adult education, like whatever you call it, Parks and Rec type of thing. I was flipping through, seeing if there was some bingo to go play because I'm an old man, and be a voiceover actor was in there. And what they had written in it was utter lies. Within 3 weeks, you'll have a demo, you'll be ready for this. And I called Parks and Rec and I said, this is BS. And someone from the organization, and I won't say, called me and was upset at me. And I said, well, it's BS. Everything you said is BS. It turns out I'm president of the association, gentleman in my neighborhood, elderly, had a problem, called me. I introduced myself, never met him before. And I said, what do you do? I'm a voiceover actor. I said, oh, no kidding. Lo and behold, you've met somebody interesting. He took that course and he honestly thought that he was a working voice actor. He thought he was going to be getting stuff. So I asked him to send me his stuff. It was awful. He had a USB mic, no sound treatment, no skill, no anything. And I didn't want to crush his dreams, but it was a little heartbreaking to watch. And I just felt bad for him. He had sunk a bunch of money. He was an elderly man, on fixed income. And I'm thinking to myself, like, he really thought that was going to be his, like, little extra cash that he was going to be making from home. And I ran into him later and he's never booked a thing. He's never done anything. There was no support afterwards. There was nothing. And that's what I really, those of you who are doing this full time and you're making a living or you're well on your way to it. A lot of what I have to say, you've already learned. You've already learned. I say what I say mostly for the people that I'm afraid are going to get sucked into the wrong hole.
Yeah, in our comments, Steve Ward said, you can't spend your way to the top. And I thought
I should read these comments.
Yeah, that should go on a t-shirt, right? Like you can't just keep it, especially in VO, no matter how much you coach, no matter how much money you spend on demos, if your reads aren't landing, your reads aren't landing. It's as simple as that. And
Yeah.
NJ and I have talked a lot recently about, and if you're in a really saturated market with your demographic, it's harder to book no matter how good you are, no matter how many great demos you have, how many great agents you have. It's just harder to book. So
that's right. And I'm going to say it again, and I apologize. I mean, I'm very passionate about my position on it. I have no ill will against people who offer their service. Again, I was a personal trainer. I was a very successful personal trainer. I traded my knowledge and my hours for money. I did this literally from 5 in the morning to 9 at night every day, right? And I gave people exactly what they wanted. I coached them. I worked my way through. The only thing that I felt was different, which is, by the way, why I really loved casting, because it reminded me of those days. It was like a one-on-one session where you were in the booth. That was the thing, and I really loved it. But the only difference is that I could play no role, beyond that, and that's what I find for me to cause me an issue.
Yeah.
Like I just don't want anyone to say, like I didn't give them or I gave them extra. It's like, no, this is it. And so I know people are going to be mad. People are going to talk about it and they're going to say I misrepresented what they're doing. And that's if they want to take it that way, then they're welcome to it. And if they want to call me, they can find me and we'll talk about it. But otherwise, keep your comments to yourself unless you're willing to bring them to me directly.
I love that.
cans of worms before.
What's that?
We put those cans of worms.
That's all right. Cans of worms are great because it's conversation. The only reason I'm on LinkedIn is to stir conversation. Like I
Yeah.
don't need to be on there. People are reaching out to me constantly, offering me their demos and their whatever else. I'm on there because I think, A, I have a purview that a lot of other people don't. And I honestly, at this point, even though I've been doing this for so long this way, not having a financial draw for my actions has it's been extremely liberating. I don't I don't have to do anything other than just cast, and I don't have to sell my service. Like I don't sell. I don't do any of that. Like it's actually quite nice,
Yeah.
you know, But for the low price of $10, I won't. I'm just kidding. I was
I love it. Well, JT, do you want to wrap us up for the
Ooh,
Yeah.
live? And
there's a wrap up.
yep, we'll
So
close it out.
we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your input and your honesty. And I think if folks weren't here for the full hour, they need to go back and listen to the whole thing because there's a lot of golden nuggets in this hour and 50. Huge thank you to everybody who did join us live tonight. We would love it if you would hop on any platform and leave us a review. Go back and check out some of our old podcast episodes. Those reviews help us reach more people, bring great content like this for free. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you all so much. Good night.